Duality is when you see everything in only two groups and you say, I like this one, so that's good. And then everything else that's different, you say that's bad. And everything is focused on that. So you see everything in life as only having two components. That's why it's called duality. Duality comes from the word duo, and duo is Latin for two. And when you only have two, you have the tendency to assign one a good label and the other one a bad label, and that's where you get into trouble. That's when you start thinking that positive is good and negative is bad, and that's not true. This universe is founded upon four elements, and they're not about which one is the best one. It's not like that. These four elements, they just work differently. They don't fight against each other or anything. They just work differently. And this is how the universe is created. So you see, it's not just two, it's more than two. Lakota Star Knowledge says it's going to always be at least three. At least. Most of the times it's four, but at least three. And many times it's more than four. But it's never, 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 ever just two. So duality is when you lose something. Lakota Star Knowledge says there's at least three components to reality. In duality, there's only two. Well, that means you're missing something. That means when you're dualistic, when you're a racist, when you say your way is the only way, when you say your religion is the only religion, when you say your race is the best race, the chosen race, when you talk like that, you're dualistic, and since you only see two components to reality, that means you do not see the complete reality. And this is the problem of today, duality. That's the main problem. And in duality, we don't take the time to check things out. We just judge it right away. We look at something or somebody and we say, oh, I don't like that. So that's evil. It must be destroyed. My favorite line from that movie called Steel Magnolias. You are evil. It must be destroyed. Shoot. Anyway, this is the problem that we have today. Duality creates everything that's problematic for everything, actually. It's not just for humans, it's also the problem for plants and animals and that which moves and grows, because all creation is connected. When you think that time only goes forward, and that the further you are, the better you are. So when you look at people behind you, the tendency is to think, I'm better than them. You're separating yourself from others, and now you create this concept of me against them. So now you see everything in two groups. The things that are like you, the things you like, and then the other group is everything else. The things you don't like. The things you think, because they're not at the same level as you, that they're not as smart as you. So from that thinking, you develop something called paternalism. Paternal meaning fatherly. That you think that you're above others. That you know what's right for others. If they just do what you say, everything will be good. See? That's paternalism. Then that expands out to your race. You think that because of whatever race you are, you think that your race is the best race. That everything else is stupid. It's racism. So racism comes from that. Then you start thinking your culture. And you say, okay, my culture is beautiful. and anything else is not. So you start judging other cultures. You look at other cultures' beliefs and you say, okay, if them guys only did this a different way, it would be better. See? Now you're judging other cultures by your culture standards. That's ethnocentrism. And then the fourth thing you develop, my way is the only way. That's dogma. Religion results from dogma. That means all of this is created by humans. It's not a natural way. This is something we learn, which means it can be unlearned. And this creates this concept of duality. And from duality comes these four things: paternalism, ethnocentrism, racism, dogma. And then you start applying this to emotions. And you say, okay, only happiness is good and everything else is bad. Yeah? And so you're always separating everything into two groups. That's why they use the word dual, which is a Latin word. And from that comes the word duality. So you see everything in your mind as having only two components. And guess what? When you think like that, you're creating good versus evil. But when you're thinking like that, you're not developed. Because the universe says there is always going to be at least three components to anything in any situation. In most cases, there's four. But it's always, always, always going to be at least three. If you believe in good versus evil, you are dualistic. And this is unhealthy. When people just focus on one emotion and they don't want to feel other emotions and they force themselves to only feel that one emotion, then they become addicted to it. And this, it creates duality. And then another way to create duality is only focusing on one part of the self, or giving one part of the self more attention than the other three, because there's four parts: the body, mind, the emotional self, and the soul. So if you just focus on one, you go dualistic there too. You separate everything into two groups. Everything you like, you say that's good, and everything you don't like, you say that's bad. So you always separate into two. In Lakota Star Knowledge, it's not that way. In Lakota Star Knowledge creation story, there are several organizations called Wakatanka. But in the beginning, there was only one. There was only one organization called Wakatanka. This is not God. We went through a Christianization experience on the reservation where our minds were basically made to be weak by not allowing us to leave the reservation, not allowing us to eat healthy food, not allowing us to speak our language. Our ceremonies were outlawed. So we became weak physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and automatically we became mentally weak. Those are the four parts of the self. Then Christian priests came and took advantage of that. This is the same process that cults and terrorists put their new recruits. They put them through these kind of things where they deprive their body of things that it needs. That's what happened to Indians. We were not allowed to eat healthy foods. We were not allowed to speak our language. We were not allowed to practice our ceremonies. So we were really hit physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And like I said, that's how we became weak-minded. And the priests took advantage of that, and they changed Lakota concepts into Christian concepts. So they changed the definition of Wakatanka to mean their Christian God. Wakatanka does not mean God. There is no one creator. People all over the world that really embrace Lakota spirituality, they don't want to have anything to do with Christianity, but then they say the Creator. They say Wakatanka, the Creator. They're still holding on to a one God concept. That's still duality. So even though they've shunned their Christian churches and are trying to follow Lakota spirituality, they're still looking at it through their Christian eyes by saying, Creator, Great Spirit, may the Great Spirit constantly bless you. See, we don't talk like this. This is not our way. That's a Christian way of talking. All they're doing is they're just looking at our way through Christian eyes. I have to point that out because there's people listening right now that believe that Wakantanka is the Great Spirit, the Creator. It's not. Absolutely not. It's an organization. There's many people in these organizations. We do not have a one God concept. Duality, either them or us. Dualism is when you see things only in two perspectives, the one you like and the one you don't like. And you say the one you don't like is, they're the bad ones, they're the evil ones. We must prove that we are right, and then they will follow us. And if they don't follow us, then we must destroy them. Think of all the world's problems that are caused by that kind of thinking. That is duality. Duality is when you take something that's whole and then you separate it into two components. And you're one of them. And you say, we are the best. We are the smartest. We are the enlightened ones. We are the chosen ones. And everybody else is an enemy. This creates addiction. It creates victims and abusers. And right now, the American leadership is acting like an abuser. What happens in duality, like I said, you have an oppressor and you have a victim. And what happens is the oppressor is always saying, we know what's right, and if you follow us, then everything will be good. If you don't, we will prove to you that you are wrong. And if you still do not join us, then we will destroy you. And that's exactly what the American government is trying to do. If we react emotionally to what they're saying, then we are really falling into their plan and we are victims. So we have to react from within and not as a response to their words, because they're speaking out of closed-mindedness. They don't see the fullness of reality. In reality, Lakota Star Knowledge says there's at least 3 perspectives, and sometimes there's more, but there's always at least 3. And what happens in an unhealthy society is that one group says they're right, and everybody else is wrong. But since Lakota Star Knowledge says there's 3 perspectives, well, the people that are saying they're right and everybody's wrong, that's one of 3 perspectives. That means it's only 1/3 of reality that they accept, that they comprehend, that they try to define. And so really 2/3 of reality, they're calling it wrong. They're calling it evil. And so when those people talk, they're not seeing the full reality, which means they're very judgmental and close-minded. There's parts of themselves that they are neglecting, which means they're sick. They use fear to control everybody, and that never works. Because they only see things in 2 possibilities, this or that. In the ancient Lakota way, there's at least 3 perspectives, and it's not about good versus evil. That's what man creates to control that which he does not understand. So in Lakota Star Knowledge, it's this, that, and the other. And sometimes there's several others. In duality, it's just this and that. And one of them is good and one of them is evil. And that's it. You see? This shows to you that people who are dualistic are very close-minded, and they are actually not able to perceive a lot of reality because they only choose one perspective. And since Lakota Star Knowledge says there's at least 3 perspectives, choosing only one is like 33%. So that means they only accept 33% of reality. That means they reject 67%. That's if a situation has three perspectives. If it has four, again, they only choose one part. That's 25%. That means they only accept 25% of reality and they reject 75%. See, the more perspectives a situation has, the less of reality dualistic people actually accept. That's why they're so thick-headed. That's why they're close-minded. That's why they have this fear of the unknown, that they feel they must destroy it. They must control it. They must be above it, and they don't learn from it. That's duality.
I invite you to come visit my website at wolakota7.com. You can see the address on the screen, and here you can learn about the books that I've written and also some of the services that I offer. For example, spiritual consultation and Lakota language lessons. And you can see the books that I wrote, and one of them, called Keya Mato Stonehearts, I wrote with my wife. And if you would like to order these books or order any of my services, you can see all the information on the screen. And for more questions, please write to me at the email address that you see at the bottom right of the screen. Thank you very much for listening to this video, and I really appreciate your support of this channel. Also, thank you for the comments that you leave. I read them all, and I really appreciate them. And if there's information here that can help you, then that's cool. And if not, then, well, that's okay too. And thank you very much for being a part of this community. I invite you to visit my other channel, which is called Lakota Language from the Heart. And I'm putting a link to it in the video description. So check out my new channel, which is exclusively about learning to speak the Lakota language from the heart. Everything is a circle. There is no end. So that's why we say until next time, which in Lakota is Doksha Ake.